Good morning. Today's hymn ties in very neatly with the story I want to tell you afterwards. So join in wherever you are. Sing along at the top of your voice. Wake your family. Torment the cat. Disturb the neighbours as we sing the hymn, Lift Up Your Hearts. At the end of the 4th century AD, a boy was born in a small town on the border between Syria and what's now Turkey. His name was Simeon. He was a devout Christian and determined to devote his life to God's service. At the age of 16, turning his back on A-levels, UCAS, and Saturday night socials, Simeon entered a monastery. But even the disciplined life of a monk was not strict enough for him, and he felt called to a life of extreme austerity and asceticism. Asceticism means avoiding all kinds of comfort and self-indulgence. For 1.5 years, Simeon lived all on his own in a hut at the edge of the monastery. When he emerged, the community leaders didn't know what to do with him. How do you solve a problem like Simeon? He was not an asset to the abbey, and he was asked to leave. Off he went to seek a quiet and solitary place where he could mortify the flesh undisturbed and concentrate on prayer. He found a rocky ravine on a distant hillside and settled down to fast and pray. But people can tell when someone's a genuinely holy person. Someone who's close to God draws others like a magnet, hoping that they too can find God's presence and his blessing. Crowds of pilgrims kept on coming to Simeon's mountain retreat, seeking his advice, asking for prayers. He was left with no time for his own devotions, so he took his journey to the next level, literally. Among the ruins of a nearby town, he found a pillar which had survived and was still standing. He built a small platform on top of the pillar and made that his home. His first pillar was about 10 feet high. He subsequently moved to one that was 50 feet high, about the height of the ceiling here in chapel. The platform on the top was just 1 metre square with a rail around the edge. And there he stayed for the rest of his life. He lived on flatbread and goat's milk, which he pulled up in a bucket. And I know what you're thinking, but I'm afraid all my reference books are silent on that. I expect a bucket was involved there too, hopefully not the same one. He lived on top of a pillar for 37 years. Yes, you heard that right, for 37 years. In all that time, he did not leave the pillar. Not for medical purposes, for food shopping, for essential work, or for exercise, alone or with members of his household. You may be surprised to hear that there's a word for a person who lives on a pillar. It's a stylite. So Simeon became known, and even within his own lifetime, he became widely known as Simeon the Stylite, Simeon Stylites in Latin. So why am I telling you about this unusual and frankly rather weird man? Well, just a couple of points. Simeon Stylites maintained a 15-metre social distance for 37 years. And in all those years of being apart from people, he grew closer and closer to God. Even within his lifetime, he was considered a man of great holiness, whose advice and blessing was sought by people from many lands, far and near. Because, you see, his self-imposed isolation didn't mean that he was withdrawn from the world. Every day he would preach to the crowds who gathered beneath his column. He wrote and received many letters. If you don't know what I mean by letters, it's like an email with better grammar. He acted as a wise judge when people fell into dispute. 2 emperors were among those who sought his counsel. Simeon is proof, if rather unusual proof, that social distancing need not inhibit spiritual development, nor prevent service of others. I don't recommend going up a pillar, but I do hope that you are using at least some of this period of social isolation to do a bit of spiritual reflection. The other reason I wanted to talk about Saint Simeon, well, you remember I said at the beginning that he lived at the border of Syria and what's now Turkey. Well, in the year 2020, that's just about one of the worst places in the world to live. Syria's civil war has killed, wounded, and displaced hundreds of thousands, right there in the place where Simeon devoted his life to bringing peace between humans and between mankind and God. Simeon the Stylite died in the year 459. The base of the stone pillar where he lived survived and could be visited by Christian pilgrims to this day. Well, not quite to this day. In 2016, the site of Simeon's pillar took a direct hit from a missile. May peace one day soon come to that troubled land. Let us pray. As you have promised, O God, draw near to us as we draw near to you. In the quietness, may we seek you and find you. Look with mercy on your world, and where there is conflict in our hearts, our homes, or our nations, pour out your blessing of peace. Amen.